All right, how you doing there, Richard? And this is Brendan Adams, and this is the Project 3 synthesis. This first little part here, I guess, is going to count as the cover letter. Basically, I'm just going to tell you what I did for this, and basically set up how I should get some advice for my significant revisions later on. Basically, this is just a PowerPoint set up with the quotes from all of the sources I had, and I'm just going to synthesize, using my own words and my own voice. Basically, what I want to know is, I just want to know what I should add to the actual physical slides. Maybe some pictures, maybe have two sources on the same slide conversating between each other, something like that, and then also how I can improve as a presenter as well. So all of that feedback will be appreciated. But without further ado, let's take a look at these sources. So the sources we're analyzing today are listed here, and you can come back and pause the video here to be able to find, to be able to come back and see the list of sources. But basically, we've got a statement by the National Association of School Nurses titled "The Legalization of Marijuana." And then we've got a New York Times article that was peer-reviewed, but printed in the New York Times, called "A Judge's Plea for Pot." And that is a plea by a former cop for marijuana to be legalized, and we're going to hear his story. And then after that, we've got a journal article assessing the science behind marijuana and what it does to the body. That's going to be, analyzing the logos behind how marijuana can help us. And mini panel, and study group is going to be the last journal article we look at, and that is from a journal called Neuropsychopharmacology, and it's going to take a look at some of the negative effects of marijuana. Also, aiding in why it should be non-legalized. All right, let's take a look at the first source. So this is the statement by the National Association of School Nurses. They say that it is the opinion of themselves, the National Association of School Nurses, that marijuana is properly categorized by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration under Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act. So, by stating that, they are saying that the drug or substance has a high potential for abuse, the drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical treatment in the U.S., and there is a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or substance under medical supervision. So, a couple of those statements seem refutable to begin with, and I'm using myself as a source to begin with before I bring in the other sources, because as a marijuana user for 4 years myself, I am knowledgeable on the subject. And in recent years, we have seen accepted medical treatment as it has been legalized in multiple states, including our own for medical treatment, California, Colorado, Oregon, and about 11 others. So that's the first statement. They say that no sound scientific studies support medical use of marijuana for treatment in the United States, and no animal or human data support the safety or efficacy, the intended result, of marijuana for general medical use. Now, I, not being a doctor, can have no, credible opinion on that, but later on we are going to see a source that has something to debate about that. And then, last but not least, the National Association of School Nurses claims that while under the effects of marijuana, a consumer's short-term memory, attention and judgment skills, coordination and balance are all impaired. And while that may be, they are using that as a reason to not have it legalized for people with chronic pain and cancer going through chemotherapy. So let's take a look at a person who is going through that. Gustin L. Rybak, that's the name of the cop, who said, "I did not foresee that after dedicating myself for 40 years to a life of the law, my quest for ameliorative and palliative care would lead me to marijuana." He was originally busting multiple people for having this, being in possession of this, using this for whatever reasons they may have wanted to, but now he's taken on to it. And that just goes to show that it might be something that's, worth legalizing. He claims that dealing with nausea and pain is one of the most difficult struggles he faces, as with most people going through chemotherapy. Every drug prescribed to treat one problem leads to one or two more drugs to offset its side effects. Pain medication leads to loss of appetite and constipation. Anti-nausea medication raises glucose levels, a serious problem for me, with my pancreas so compromised. So, by taking this extreme medication routine, he's getting multiple negative effects, and at the same time, taking medication is never good. Taking prescription medication is never good. It's not good for your body. He thinks marijuana is a better option. Quote, inhaled marijuana is the only medicine that gives me some relief from nausea, stimulates my appetite, and makes it easier to fall asleep. So if a cop thinks that this is a good idea, someone who originally had the most negative views and was busting people on this thinks this is a good idea and finds it to be the only relief for his pain, he's just saying that it should be legalized, and he's refuting a couple of statements from the National Association of School Nurses. Let's take a look at this one. Marijuana and medicine, assessing the science base. Janet E. Joy. So basically, she did a long laboratory study with lots of different variables, in which case she was trying to find what marijuana can do for the body in different areas, as a pain reliever, as an anxiety reliever, what it can do for the body. And here's what she came to the conclusions of. These are the conclusions from a couple of her different studies. Quote, an inhalation, but preferably not smoking, cannabinoid drug delivery system would be advantageous for treating chemotherapy-induced nausea. So, of course, they're saying that it should not, preferably not smoked, because smoking is, of course, not good for the lungs, but are saying that cannabinoids, marijuana, THC, is advantageous for treating chemotherapy-induced nausea, just as our last source said was the only way he was able to help that chemotherapy-induced nausea. This next statement is very interesting because it clearly states, quote, the available evidence from animal and human studies indicates that cannabinoids can have a substantial analgesic effect. Analgesic meaning pain-relieving effect. Take a pause there. Let's go back to sources. That is that's conversating right away with the National Association School Nurses statement that says no sound scientific studies support medical use of marijuana for treatment in the United States, and no animal or human data support the safety or efficacy intended result of marijuana for general medical use. Now, what's the best part about this is that the study that was done, as you can see, was in 1999, printed in 1999. This, by the National Association of School Nurses, is their opinion in the year 2013. So they're making this claim after official journal articles, were printed over 10 years earlier. All right. Last thing they had to say was nausea, appetite loss, pain, and anxiety all can be mitigated by marijuana, just as the cop said was helping him, and that's why he was using it as well. All right. Let's take a look at this last source. So this one's a little interesting. Of course, it was another study group. It was a panel. It involved, people and how they use marijuana, as well as they did some actual laboratory studies. And they came to the conclusion that marijuana is one of the many causes of schizophrenia, even though psychosis does not occur in most marijuana users. So it can lead to schizophrenia, which of course is severe, but should it be a reason to not legalize it? That's what they're going for. Chronic marijuana use initiated in adolescence reduces IQ significantly in adulthood. I get that, but if it's being treated under medical, or if it's only being regulated for medical use, you wouldn't have to worry about adolescents using it, other than probably THC pills that have been shown to help with seizures and epilepsy in young children. But other than that, it would be heavily monitored by parents, of course, as it is expected that they are not letting their children, be in charge of their own prescription medication. Last thing they had to say: the reduction in striatal dopamine synthesis capacity associated with chronic cannabis use may underlie reduced reward sensitivity and motivation. Maybe so, and yes, so probably. I could argue that as well, that your motivation to do stuff is definitely weakened once you start smoking marijuana. Towards certain things, you probably become more motivated towards other things. But in the end, this is only going to be legalized for medical use and as basically a last attempt to save your body, in which case you do not care how motivated you are or how you feel, as long as that you're not in pain. That's the end of the slideshow, Richard. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed the synthesis. Once again, just when you give me my tips, I'm actually going to just come back here for you if you want to pause on this slide at the very end for whatever you're doing as I'm talking. But basically, just give me any tips, how I should improve as a speaker. Should I add some pictures? Should some of the sources be on the same page? You know what I'm saying? Like to have this source and this source be in two different columns on the same page, so that you could physically see the conversation between each other. Something like that. Anything. All right. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. I'm emailing it to you now. Have a great night, Richard.